So we're learning Tanya Likuti Amarim chapter 13 for the 20th day of Tevis. We are in Tafshin Pei Aleph. In today's lesson, despite the fluctuation of the Bein and Islav of Hashem, it not being an eternal flame, as is the tzaddik has eternal flame, the Beinoni has ups and downs, it can nonetheless be termed truthful. We can still call it truthful because yesterday we said that Sfas emes tikon lo'ad, the truth, the language of truth will remain forever. So meaning if it's not true, if it's not consistent, it's not truthful. But he tells us that even the Aves Hashem, the love that the Beinoni has to Hashem, is also truthful, even though it has ups and downs. Although truth by definition is unchanging, since it can be renewed daily, forever having a perpetual quality. The Alter Rebbe goes on to explain that nevertheless the Beinoni's love relative to his standing is considered a true form of service. Again, relative to his standing. The aforementioned love attained by the Beinonim at the time of davening, the time of prayer, by virtue of the temporary preponderance of the divine soul over the animal soul. In the Legabe Madrigas HaTzadikim Evde Avai Be'emes La'amita En Bechinas Avazu Klal Avazu Nikas B'Shem Aveda Semes Klal. From the perspective of a tzaddik, the work that the Beinoni is doing, it's not considered avodah. It's like, imagine someone that is carrying, he works in construction, and every day he walks 20,000 steps and he's carrying heavy loads on his back. And a guy tells him that he works in the office and he moves papers right and left. He says, that's not avodah, that's not work. From his perspective, it's not work. You're not sweating, you're not under the sun. You're not
sweating more. He has to say lies and they shouldn't catch him. I mean, he sweats quite a bit.
I'm just giving an example, right?
I understand. I want to give you an example.
So from the perspective, from the perspective
the guy
of
saying lies, he's not sweating. They shouldn't catch him.
No.
You're tzaddik.
So from the perspective of the laborer, the guy that is working construction, the guy that works in the office is not working hard. So over here it tells us, from the perspective of tzaddik, the Aves Hashem that the Beinoni is developing is not a per se avodah. It's not considered labor, or it's not considered avodas emes. It's not considered truthful service. Why is it not considered a truthful service? Because after davening it goes away, or it changes, it fluctuates after davening. And it says, Siv in Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei, Sfas emes tikon lo'ad, which means the language of truth shall be established forever, but the tongue of falsehood is only momentary. So when you talk about sheker, like you mentioned, falsehood changes all the time. One day he says this, the next day he says that, one day he feels this way, the next day he feels that way. So the term truth refers to something immutable. The temporary and passing are not considered true. The same applies here as well. Since the Beinoni's love of Hashem is felt only during prayer and disappears afterwards, it does not measure up to the sense of truth, the perfect truth attained by tzaddikim. But this is referencing to the lower level Beinoni, because yesterday we spoke about the higher level Beinoni, that he carries his Aves Hashem even once he gets out of the shul, he still carries his Aves Hashem.
Be on the lower level.
Who?
I said I agreed to be on the lower level. I don't have to be.
Right. That's an accomplishment, by the way. If you say it, that's an accomplishment, because that means that you understand that a Beinoni means someone that requires a lot of work. Even to be on a low level Beinoni, it means someone that never sins, someone that controls his machshava dibur u'maaseh. It's unbelievable. Page 81, it says, from the perspective of the Beinoni, it's considered real service, a truthful. They did their part. Truly perfect service in terms of the level of truth, the level of Beinunim. In each man relative to his standing in his category of the Beinunim. As mentioned earlier, the rank of Beinuni is subdivided into many levels. You know what's the different levels in a Beinunim? We said similarly with tzaddikim, is how much they, how despicable evil is to them, right? Each one has a different level of how it is. But when it comes to Beinoni, there's also many levels of what is their Avos Hashem, how much they have and how often and how consistent it is. Their love, which they possess only during davening, I call it the language of truth, which shall be established forever. Their love is true and permanent, though manifest only during prayer. So it's permanent in prayer. It comes every time he davens, the love comes. He generates this love. So it's emes because it comes every time he davens. Oil, and why am I calling it emes after davening goes away? Because they always have the capacity of, or the capability of reawakening this love. And how do they have this capability? Through proper or adequate preparation. If they prepare themselves, if they do the hachana, the proper preparation before davening, they can arouse this Avos Hashem every time they daven. Yeah, learning and the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, writes in Kuntras HaTfilah. He wrote a whole teaching about davening, and he said that if you're learning, and even you think about your learning, it's not that you just learn, but you carry the learning with you, but you are not. It did not change the way you daven. If it did not affect the way you're davening, your learning of Chassidus, you didn't learn. You missed it. You missed it.
You missed the boat.
You missed it. Your learning has to change the way you daven.
Yeah.
Any liberator.
Also, his banana.
So his boyanus is what needs to be done in order to lead you to Avos Hashem. That's the adequate preparation that he's speaking about. That's the achana. But some people get inspired,
learning,
like intellectually, and when it comes to davening, the davening is still very quick, very systematic. It's not without mindfulness. It's not thoughtful. And the learning needs to affect the davening. It says that when you say Baruch Ato should be lenoichach, which means that you, Baruch means amshacha. Mavrichas hagefen is someone that takes the vine of the grafting that was done with grapevines. Is that they're very flexible. The grapevines, and they would take the vine and put it back in the ground, and it would create a new vine. It's called mavrich. So boch is to pull something down. So when you say boch ato, that we should actually do the amshacha when we're saying boch ato. There's so many things to think about when we say when we daven. So it has to affect your davening. Chassidus has to affect your davening. Every learning needs to affect. It's primarily Chassidus. And so he says, if you're learning Chassidus and you're not, and it's not affecting your davening, something is. I don't want to use the word that he wrote, but he used the word very harsh. Like it's as if it's not, none was accomplished. So the Beinun is love of Hashem is thus constant, since it is either in an active revealed state, or or it is in potential. Right? So, and can be revealed at any moment throughout the day. For as mentioned earlier, every Beinoni has the potential to attain the level of praying the whole day long. And remember, we said praying the whole day long means that you're carrying your davening with you to wherever you go. You're in the mode of davening wherever you are. Wherever you are at, you're still davening. You're still in the mode of davening, meaning that Avos Hashem, the love of God that you arouse in davening, you are taking it with you to your work, to your day. So Benoni has that potential. He can do it. One difficulty yet remains: how is it possible for the same level of service to be considered untrue by the standards of tzaddikim, and true with regard to Benoni? In truth, is truth not absolute? He asked the question. So you're saying that from the tzaddik perspective, he's not considered. It's not considered emes. It's not truthful service. From the perspective of the Beinoni, it's considered complete service, truthful service. So he said, emes is supposed to be absolute. What do you mean? There's two emes? Either is truthful service, or it's not. So he says, Ki nemidas emes imidosa shel Yaakov. Haniko b'riach hatichoin amavriach min hakotzel hakotzel. He says that Yaakov is the attribute of emes. Because the Pasuk says, Titen emes liYaakov. Give emes to Yaakov. It says, for truth is the attribute of Yaakov. As the Pasuk states, you give truth to Yaakov, who is called the middle bolt, which secures everything from end to end. We know that in the sanctuary you had berichim, you had supporting beams, and the middle beam was miraculously done because it went through those beams, and it did a 45 or 90. Which one is more? 45 is more. It did 45 and then another 45. So B'riach HaTichon, the middle beam that is supported from minakotze lakotze, from one end to the other end. That's the attribute of Yaakov. So just as the middle bolt in the tabernacle secured and bolted together all the boards by passing through them all, in spiritual terms, this means that the attribute of truth passes from the highest gradations and levels to the end, to the lowest of all grades. In each gradation and level, it passes through the central point of the particular level, which is, i.e., which then becomes the point and quality, the standard of the level's attribute of truth. Proof is now given that each grade has its own standard of truth, as it were. It's like, reminds me the example of, you have two guys that are climbing the mountain. So one guy climbed 100 feet, another guy climbed already 1,000 feet. So you call the guy that climbed 100, and you tell him, can you please describe what you see? And you get one description. Then you call the guy that climbed 1,000 feet, and you tell him to describe what he sees, and he gives you a completely different description. So you say, 1 second, is somebody's not saying the truth? So both are saying the truth, but each one is on a different level. So each one is seeing his own truth. So I don't know if it's exactly what the line of how the Alter Rebbe is explaining it, but it's an example that I heard. But he writes, in each gradation and level, it passes through the central point of that particular level, which then becomes the point and quality of that level's attribute of truth. Proof is now given that each grade has its own standard of truth, as it were. Now the attribute of truth is an unbounded inheritance, It has no upper limit, as it extends to the highest levels. And all power, gradations, and levels are as nothing. And all lower gradations and levels are as nothing compared with those superior to them. If then truth is found on all levels, despite their disparity, we must conclude that the standard of truth on each level is relative to the core of that level. In support for his statement that the lower levels and grades are incomparable to the higher ones, the Alter Rebbe cites כידוע לידיכם חוכמה נסתר שבחינס רוי שהוא מויכן שהמדרגוס תחתונס אלא למטה מבחינס הכביים ורג למידס עליונס מהם כמים ארוסן זיכרון לברכה רג לאחרס כנגד כולם. He says like this. He brings the Gemara in Chagiga. He writes like this. As is known to the student of Kabbalah, hidden wisdom, the quality that is the head and the intellect, the highest level, within lower grades, is inferior to the soles and feet that the very lowest level within the higher grades. So it's like this. Just to you got it? Or so if you have, let's say we'll take the worlds, right? So we have the lowest world is Asiya. What's the world of action now? What's the highest level within the world of action? Chokhmah. Okay? Or Keter of Asiya. Chokhmah. Chokhmah, the intellect, is the highest level within the world of Asiya. What's the lowest level of the world of Yetzirah? Is Malchus. Malchus is the lowest level. So it tells you that Chokhmah, Chokhmah of Asiya, the world of action, in comparison to the level of Malchus, which is the lowest level, the world of Yetzirah, it's like the soles, like the foot. Meaning that the world of Yetzirah is so much greater, surpassing the world of Asiya in so much that it's considered like the feet of the Chokhmah of Asiya is considered. It's like saying a professor in Harvard, and you take a kid that is the smartest kid in the class, but in comparison to that professor, he's not considered a Chacham, right? So the same thing with the world of Yetzirah is so much greater. So over here it tells us, as known in the student of Kabbalah, the quality that is the head and intellect, the highest level within the lower grades, meaning the world of Asiya is the lower grades, is inferior to the soles and feet, the very lowest level within the higher grades. So in the higher grades, even though it's the lowest one, is higher than the highest of Chokhmah. So our sages say the feet of the highest surpasses all those levels lower than them, including the highest degree within those lower levels. And that coming from Gemara in Chagiga and Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph 13a. So the attribute of truth then is measured according to the standard of each level. We may thus conclude that the divine service of Beinonim is considered true service. It's Aveda Tama, it's complete, it's emes, it's true, it's real, relative to their level. Although when compared with the service of Tzaddikim, it is not considered true, since it passes after prayer, it passes after davening. So the takeaway from today's Tanya is being a Beinoni, being an intermediate man, a Beinoni might not be as perfect as a Tzaddik, but it is you perfect. It is your perfect. Being a Beinoni is how you shine. This is your mission. This is our mission, to be a Beinoni.
We shall overcome.
Rabbi, it's interesting, the vanity obviously is an unbelievable level, and incredible. At Tzaddik, we're comparing the levels. A Tzaddik would never ever look at a Jew like that, and I as far as even to say such a thing about that so-and-so is, they do nothing compared to so-and-so.
Of course not.
We're just analyzing the situation.
100%. Yeah, thank you for clarifying it.
Tzaddik only have love and admiration of a godly, of a nefesh elokit,
Yeah, the Rebbe looked at Beinonim like he said about a few people that they're Beinonim, and the greatest admiration, definitely. Yeah, but if a tzaddik would experience Avas Hashem that the Benoni experiences for himself,
Right,
if he would experience it, and he says, "Hey, suddenly I have changes. I don't feel the same way I felt inside the shul, outside the shul." To him, it would be considered a fraudulent falsehood. It wouldn't be the real thing. Yeah. So today's Chumash, it says in 167. Educating for greatness. So Vayigdal HaYeled, it's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu, that he grew up, but Tevieu Levas Paroi, and Yocheved brought him back to the daughter of Paro, to Batya, Vayilo Leven, and he became like her son to Batya. Vatikra Shmo Moshe, Vatemer Ki Min Hamayim Meshisiu, and she called him Moshe because she said, I drew him out of the water. Paro and his court knew that Moshe was Jewish.
You knew it. He's a smart man.
This is. I mean, it's only Hashem. I mean, if you think about it, we read today in the Parsha that Paro said that every single boy should be killed, Jews and non-Jews. All the boys should be killed.
He was a smart man.
Because the stargazers told him that the Redeemer of the Jewish people was born, right? So, but Hashem made such a joke out of him that the Redeemer is living in his own house, he's supporting him, educating him, and it's right in front of his right in front of his face. Paro and his court knew that Moshe was Jewish, but they assumed that if they raised him like an Egyptian, he would become one of them. Actually, it says
that Moshe kill him.
Actually, it says that Moshe was punished because he said one time, Ish Mitzri Anechi. He said Ish Mitzri when he ran away, and he says I'm a Mitzri. He grew up in Mitzrayim. What would you expect? But they thought they were able to change his core. But Moshe Rabbeinu obviously, and when he walked out and he saw he right away gets involved. He didn't have to get involved. So Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen to be Moshe Rabbeinu because he was getting involved. A lot of people say, "Look, I'm living in luxury. I'm comfortable. Why should I get involved? Why should I risk my comfort?" Moshe Rabbeinu cannot stand to see injustice being done. He cannot handle injustice, and we see it time after time. He said he sees it with the Egyptian hurting a Jew. We see it with the shepherds. Afterwards, the shepherds are of Israel. That they are chasing the daughters of Israel. Right? It says Nidu. Rashi says that they excommunicated Israel because he stopped with Avodah Zarah, and he stand up for them also. Vayigalshum, he chases away, and again, he tells Hashem, Lama roiso lama zeh. He says to him, why did you do? Why are you causing them pain? And continuously fighting for the Jewish people. So Paro and his court knew that Moshe was Jewish, but they assumed that if they raised him like an Egyptian, he would become one of them.
Why did he want him to become one of them?
Well, it says clearly that Paro wanted. It says when he tells Shifra and Pua, he tells them, Kol haben, he said you should kill them, right? You should kill any Im benu, if it's a boy, kill him, right? So they ask the question, what do you mean you just said to kill only the boys. Why the Torah need to tell me clearly that the daughter should stay alive? So the commentator says that Abbas Techayun, the girls should live, but they should live the way we want. We want the girls, but we want the girls to be educated the way we want. We want to be an we want him to be an Egyptian, and his exceptional intelligence and talents could be put to good use in Paro's government. He figured out Moshe is a smart man, very intelligent. If we educate him like an Egyptian, he will be useful to run the country. In fact, however, since he spent his early formative years in his parents' home, because she was nursing him, so he was staying with his mother, the education and values that he received from his people, from his parents, enabled him to remain aloof, both from the incitements of Egyptian culture and the social status offered him there. Like Yosef, he wasn't affected by royalty, and he was brought to Paro's household. Moreover, the clarity of values with which his upbringing endowed him enabled him to imbibe whatever positive lessons could be learned in the Egyptian court. So he didn't outright rejected what the Egyptian had to teach. It says Chochma b'goyim tamin, that if you can learn from the nations, you see wisdom, you're allowed to take it. Emunah b'goyim al tamin. So it says Moshe Rabbeinu, he had clarity of values with which his upbringing endowed him, enabled him to sort, see what is good and he can take what is not. Whatever positive lessons could be learned in the Egyptian court, the techniques of leadership he learned from Paro, he learned from his household, organization, regal bearing, and so forth, while remaining true to his people and his God. So we see here how crucial is the early education of children, particularly the moral education, and that the values we impart to them can even prepare them for moral and spiritual greatness. So it says Moshe Rabbeinu was able to make the right choices because of the early education that he received. Bruchim Tiv.
Yeah.